Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot and a member of the PMDG 737 tech team. Welcome to our descent preparation tutorial for the PMDG 737 in Flight Simulator 2024. So we are a minimum of 80 miles from our top of descent. For the purpose of a tutorial, I would recommend using quite a bit more, so 150 to 200 miles to start preparing for your approach. The first thing we're going to do is to collect our destination weather. So for that, let's go down into the ACARS and request the weather for our destination in Palma de Mallorca. So VATSIM ATIS is requested, let's send that and see what is going to come back from here. So as soon as the ATIS is available, we will see the comm light come on. In the meantime, we can start going on to the descent page and start entering 250 knots below flight level 100, which we can execute. Then we go to the forecast page and do the descent wind requests down here. And automatically it would give you the winds from level 250 and below. You can change that manually by simply typing altitudes in here and then doing the request. So, the comm message indicates that an ACARS message has been received, so let's have a look into that message. So, Palma ATIS info Charlie, runway news 24 left, expect ILS Zulu approach, wind 190 at 2, few clouds 1500, 17 degrees 1012. Whenever the QNH is received, let's already pre-select that, both on the primary altimeter as well as on the ISFD. So 1012 is pre-selected. Transition level 7.5. So let's now go back onto the descent forecast page where we can load the weather and also enter the QNH like this and the transition level. Okay, all of those is checked and now we can press execute. Next up we are going to move to the fix page where we enter the landing runway, so runway 24 left, put that up here. And then we are going to draw 3 rings around it. The first one equals 3 times the cruise altitude, so 37 times 3 is 111, so slash 111. This one is used to verify the position of our top of descent. So looking up here, the top of descent should be roughly about where that descent ring is as well. The next is going to be a 10-mile ring, which we are using for energy management on the arrival. We will talk about that on the actual approach procedure. And lastly, we are going to enter either a 4 or a 5-mile ring, depending on the local weather. If it is IMC, so if the cloud base is at 1,000 feet or lower and the visibility is 5,000 meters or worse, then we're going to enter a 5-mile ring. If the weather is better than that, we are going to enter a 4-mile ring. So today, since the weather is better, let's go ahead and enter a 4-mile ring down here. Now, from there, we can move on to the legs page. And this is where we will also need the electronic flight bag. So let's go up here into the charts and select our arrival airport, stars, and now we're looking for the Lunik to Papa arrival for the ILS Zulu approach runway 24 left. So here's the Lunik to Papa arrival, and now we need the ILS Zulu runway 24 left. And when we're already in the EFB, let's also go ahead and collect the airport charts and the parking stand charts. Now, let's start with our arrival. So, first of all, a couple of general things over here. Wait for radar vectoring before reaching IAF. And IAF is considered the clearance limit, so that's going to be Cap de Pera today. As you can see, IAF runways 24 left and right. And apart from that, we got no limits on this start. So there is, of course, a certain chance that we may get a shortcut, and we are going to look into this right now. So let's start by grabbing the charts and confirming the arrival. So, first of all, I'm going to make my life easy over here. Let's go ahead and fly direct to Vatir, so that we don't have to fly as many turns. LNAV available, LNAV. Okay, now, Lunik, above flight level 100. And we got Lunik, above level 100. Then we got the slew point at 20 DME inbound Cap de Pera, and we can see that's Cap de Pera, that's 19.3, so that is our slew point. at 250 knots, which we got in here, and then we proceed towards Cap de Pera. We have already entered the Cap de Pera transition for our arrival, which we can see on the ILS chart. So coming in from Cap de Pera, we fly towards Bavoum, 4,500 feet, then we continue towards Obumu, which is above 2,500 feet. We can see that down here, and then we got the final approach fix at 2,500 feet in here. So the waypoint that is closest to 10 nautical miles should be at 180 knots or less. So what I'm going to do is enter Ubumu 180 knots or below, slash, enter that in here, and that gives me my 180 knot restriction. Execute. Now, we do check the vertical profile to be 3 degrees, which agrees with the approach chart over here, and as you can see, the minimum is 239 feet. The 737, depending on the way the airline certified it, is either a Category Charlie or a Category Delta aircraft. In general, the 737-600 and 700 are always Category Charlie. The 800 depends. Some operators have certified it for a maximum landing weight of 65.317 tons. In that case, it is a Category Charlie aircraft. That is, for example, what Ryanair uses. Others, especially holiday carriers like TUI or Corendon or those Turkish carriers, have certified it to 66 tons landing weight, and then 800 is a Category Delta aircraft. So really depends on the operator that you are flying. Now the 900 is always a Cat Delta aircraft. Today, since we're flying Ryanair, it is a Cat Charlie, so 239 feet as a minimum does apply. So let's go ahead and set that up here. So here we go, minimum 239 is set. Now for the go-around, let's have a look into the textual description. Proceed on runway heading to 420 feet, which we got down here, and then turn left, not before radial 193 of Juliet Oscar Alpha, max 185 knots, and follow the radial 193 outbound. So down here, we basically got that definition. And then we have the runway heading until 420, intercept 193 heading, climbing to 3,000 feet. Now, some operators have those 3,000 feet inserted hard down here. However, on a vector lag, the 737 doesn't support it. So normally you would cross-check the missed approach altitude down here as well, but on a vector lag, the 737 can't do that. Now, let's go ahead and see if there is any potential for optimization. So as you can see, the standard arrival takes you through the center line and then back northbound from Cap de Pera towards the center line. Now, ATC is often going to give you shortcuts where it makes sense, and there is one situation in which the shortcut absolutely makes sense, and that is from here, from about the slew point, direct to Bavoum. So let's go ahead and prepare ourselves for that shortcut. So what we're going to do is the following. We take Bavoum, copy that, and put it behind the slew point. Now you can see, without executing, now you can see it calculates flight level 106 at the slew point. So what I'm going to do is I'll copy this, then hit erase, so that I still have the original route, and you can see that the load routing is around 2,500 feet lower than the long one. So let's enter this. Execute, and now the airplane is going to calculate with that altitude restriction that we've just entered for the slew point, which is calculated by VNAV so that we can fly direct to Bavoum if it becomes sensible to do so. That way we have already taken a possible shortcut into consideration, but we have not messed up the route so that if we don't get the shortcut, we can simply still follow the FMS routing. And that's pretty much what we're doing down here. Now, from there, let's continue our setup. We've now pretty much done everything in the FMS that we needed to do for the time being. So let's also put the charts away again. It's a 737 though, not an Airbus, so we need to do a few more things, and that's the frequencies and the courses. So we got 109.3, Make sure that ILS is selected on the MMR, 109.3, and I'm going to put that active. And the same on the other side, 1093. Note that you don't need to type the last figures, it's automatically going to insert them when you switch it active. And then for the missed approach we could use Palma San Juan on 117.7. I do like to type the last figure if I don't want to switch it active right away, because it kind of looks stupid if you leave it open like this, does it? So that's personal preference though. Alright, so with that our radios are set. Then we need the courses, which are 237. Set once and set twice. Alright, perfect. And that's the FMC setup complete. Lastly, we set the auto brake. And to determine the auto brake setting, we have to do our landing performance calculation. So let's go into the performance tool, landing en route, import that one from the flight plan, runway 24 left. Now we can just make it easy and import the aircraft details, or you are going to calculate it manually. So down here we are burning 1,000 kilos, as you can see. That gives us current gross weight minus 1,000, so 63.6, like that. And then, as you can see, the EFB calculates it even more precise. So let's do 63,600. So flap configuration, 30 for most approaches, 40 only if required by performance reasons or for low visibility operations. Air conditioning on, anti-ice off, reversers no credit. You should always choose that one when you are operating on a dry runway. Only if you are on a wet runway, the reversers are actually going to make a difference. Auto brakes, I would normally start with auto brakes 3. That is a pretty normal setting for the 7.3. Non-normal conditions, we don't need any. VREF edition, the minimum is VREF edition 5 knots. So always use that. For the weather, you can either import it or you can use automatic import. Doesn't really matter. And with that, let's hit calculate. So that gives us 1,713 meters of runway required. Now, when we have a look at the approach chart, or rather at the airport chart, then we will quickly notice that on runway 24 left, landing over here, we got that exit Sierra 2. The entire runway is 3,000 meters, so Sierra 2 is probably at around 2,000 meters. So that would be an exit that may be appropriate to take. Sierra 1, longer taxi. Sierra 2, you end up straight at the apron. So Sierra 2 is a good idea to use. Now, in the real world, what we would do to determine the distance to the exit is to take a piece of paper, draw a scale on it, like down here you got, that's 1,000 meters, and then you just put that piece of paper on there until you have the actual exact distance to the exit. Now, let's say it's 2,000 meters, then going into the performance tool, we could optimize a little bit. So we could, for example, say auto brakes 2, what's that going to give us? 2,184, so actually a little bit more, but it is a rapid exit taxiway, so auto brakes 2 might actually work pretty well if we touch down early in the touchdown zone. So auto brakes 2, auto brakes 3, both are acceptable. In most cases in the real world, I found myself landing using flaps 30 and auto brakes 3, so let's go ahead and select that right up here. Cool, and that pretty much completes the setup. There is one more thing that we need to do though, and that is to actually enter our landing flap setting. Now, the reason we haven't done that yet is because that is usually determined during the approach briefing. Therefore, if you do a self-briefing, then by all means wait with the landing flap setting until you are in that briefing. Otherwise, go ahead and enter it now. Small trick, if you just press the button twice, it's automatically going to select it, like this. Otherwise, pressing once copies into the scratch pad, then you can enter it, but pressing twice simply enters it straight away. And that, my friends, basically concludes the setup of our FMS for the 737 for an approach. Thank you very much for watching, as always. I do hope that you enjoyed this one. As always, leave a like and comment, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.